Okay, so welcome guys to next video. In this video we are going to talk about fat arrow function in depth. So to get started, first of all let's create like usual function. So we can type function and then let's give it a name. Let's say greet, and then of course we need to put curly braces in there, and then let's make it return hello there string. Okay, and then we can of course like call greet over here, and we can wrap that call inside of a console.log, so we can see that hello there string appear in our console. So if I save this and I open my terminal, again I'm using Node.js for this. You of course don't have to. There is nothing that is like glued to Node in this video series at all. It's just like my preference, so feel free to use like JSBean or any other site that you want. There are like plenty of those sites out there. So I'm going to type node, and then I'm going to follow that by file name, which is called code worker, and if I execute it we see hello there. Okay, so this is how you're used to write functions and how you pretty much use them all the time. Now the ES6 introduced to us the new way of writing functions, and it is called fat arrow function. The name comes from the way that you use this equal sign and this greater than combined, so that like looks like fat arrow, I guess. So to get started, let's rewrite this function using the fat arrow notation. So we can create a variable that will hold our function. So let's use const for that. We'll call that greet, and then we want to assign to that value a so-called fat arrow function. So we need to create parentheses like this, and then we need to type that fat arrow symbol, and then we open a curly braces like we used to, and then we can pretty much write the same way that we had like up above. So let's return hello there from here as well, and let's test it. So for time being I'm going to console.log, to comment out this function over here, so we know that we're using this one. So if I save this and I navigate here again and I rerun this file, we see the same thing. Okay, now a couple of things that you need to be aware of. First of all, if your function doesn't have any parameters, you need to put like empty parentheses inside of here, otherwise it won't work. Next, if your function takes exactly one parameter, you can omit using these parentheses. So let's say that our greet function takes in a parameter called name, and then we want to write hello there plus the name. Okay, and let's test it over here. Let's provide in there Stefan, that's my name, but you can put yours in there. And let me rerun this file once again, and we should see hello there Stefan. So this is fine, but as I said, when you have exactly one parameter, you can pretty much get rid of these parentheses, and you can have then your fat arrow looking like this. Just to check that and to make sure it works, you can see it does. Now the third rule is when you have two or more parameters, you need to have parentheses in there. So let's say we need to provide both a title and a name. So we can't do this won't work. We need to wrap them inside parentheses like this, and then we can write something like title so we want there to says let's say dot and then space like this, and then if I put here like Mr. Stefan and I run this, we should see hello there, space Mr. Steph. Okay, So basically those are three rules that you need to be aware of. So if you have a none, if you have 0 parameters, you still need those parentheses. If you have 1 parameter, you can pretty much get away without using them, but if you have 2 or more, you need to use parentheses over here. Okay, that's like, let's say that's like first stage of learning fat arrow function. A second stage would be that. Okay, so the next stage, so to speak, of learning fat arrow function would be to learn this rule. It's a simple one. Whenever you have like a single line of code inside of your function body over here, you can write this in an even shorter way. So to do that, you need to bring everything up on the same line. So let me move this up above. Okay, then you need to get rid of these curly braces, so the starting one and the ending one, and you also need to get rid of this return if you have it, like this. So now if I save this and I go and run this once again, we see the same output as we did previously. Okay, and also like if you have a function that has like only one line, let's say something like this, that has console.log and then some text, even though even though you don't have like explicit return statement over here, you can still bring this in this form, and this will work as usual. So pretty much whenever your fat arrows functions body contains one line of code, you can bring it up in this form that is like shorter to write. And where this really like shines is when you think like of functions like, let's say, add, and we define those functions with like a and b, and we want them to be like to return a plus b. So you can see how this is like nicely written. And now of course we can console.log, let's say add 2 and 5 for example, and we see a 7. So things of that nature. You can of course keep adding more, but that's not the point of this video. I just want to show you that like there is no magic involved in that whatsoever. Okay, so that's it. There isn't like a whole bunch to learn. It's just like a nicer way to write function. So it's pretty much synthetic change, but there is one big difference between fat arrow functions and regular functions, and the difference is in how the context of this gets assigned. So I'm not sure how familiar or not you are with this keyword, literally this keyword in JavaScript, but in any way I'll show you. For that I need to open JSBin because I need some HTML code so I can show you how the different context gets binded to this keyword. Okay guys, so I opened the JSBin website in the full screen mode, so you can do that and follow along. What we need for this demonstration is we need this HTML panel opened, we need JavaScript, and we need console, like this. Okay, now I want to demonstrate like how these keywords behaves differently whenever you use regular function versus you use fat arrow function. So to get started, let's create a regular function first. Let's call it testing this, why not? And inside of there, let's simply console.log this keyword. And now we can call it over here, so let's call it like this. Okay, and let me run this. Too many these words right now. And if I scroll up to the you can see that this is actually window, like top level window object. Okay, now let's see what happens when we do the same thing but using the fat arrow function this time. So I'm going to create a new variable called fn, and I'm going to create a fetero function, and what we want is to pretty much console.log this. Okay, and now I want to comment out this line over here and call this newly defined function instead. I'm going to clear this console tab over here and rerun the code again, and you should see the pretty much same thing happen. So again, this inside of this fetero function refers to this global window object. Okay, now let's create a button inside of this HTML. Button, let's give it a name like click me, and let's add to it like ID of btn. Okay, and now if I show the output tab as well, we can see it. Right now clicking it doesn't do anything. So now we want to assign to add a new event listener to this button and to see how that changes this keyword inside of these two functions. Okay, so first of all we need to get a reference to this button over there. So let me first of all comment out this. We don't want to call it anymore. Instead we want to get a reference and assign it to this new variable. Let's call it button, and let's use document.get element by ID, and the ID that we assign to it is this button. Okay, now we have a handle on that button, and now we want to listen on particular event on that button, and let's say we listen on the click. So we can say button.add event listener. We want to define what type of event, so we want to type here click, and then we want to pass first of all this first version of this function like this. Now I need to clear this console, run with JavaScript, and now if I click this button, this function gets called, and that function simply outputs whatever is stored in this keyword, and we see that what actually is stored is the HTML button element. Okay, so now take a note of that, and let's see what happens when we simply exchange this function and call this fn that is a fetero function instead. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. So just notice they're like the same functions. Now if I clear the console and run this and click the button once again, you see this time that we get a different output, and actually we're still getting that global object window. So that's a big thing that changes with you using a fetero function instead of regular function. As you've been able to see, when using regular functions, that this keyword inside that function gets reassigned to different things depending on what's called that function, but when using a fetero function it keeps pointing on the same top level object. Okay guys, so with that, this is pretty much it. Just keep in mind those three rules when creating a fetero functions. Namely, whenever you have exactly 0 parameters, you still need like to have parentheses, but like them being empty. When you have exactly 1 parameter, you can do it without using the parentheses, but whenever you have 2 or more parameters, you pretty much need parentheses. Next, whenever your function body contains exactly 1 line of code, you can create this even shorter version. And thirdly, this keyword behaves differently when you take a look at a fetero function and regular function, and simply be aware of that. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.